We are to protect our citizens, and we have information that indicates that putting this person back out on the streets is going to cause some irreparable harm to a number of people. I think there's a duty to make sure that person is somehow controlled, that it doesn't happen again. Now, I expect, as we talked about earlier, electronics and technology improves, they'll determine a system that allows them to monitor him without actually physically confining him.
I think not specifically talking about this person, but I think that when you have a proven mass sexual predator, you should cut their nuts off. It's that simple.
Well, we're on a public show, so I won't actually repeat those words, but I understand the theory behind it.
We have our ex-DA on. He's an attorney, Jim Subjack. We're just wrapping on a little bit about some of the local happenings in terms of the law. And Newson probably is a senior by now.
Actually, he would be in his, because it was 1997 when he committed the offenses. It was 1999, I believe, when he was convicted, because it took some time, and that was a very complex scientific case to put together. But he would be mid-30s, I think, by now. He apparently has gotten married. Of course, I'm not, hopefully I don't offend anybody here, but for some reason there's a fascination with state incarcerated prisoners, and there are, well, both sexes, but mostly women, that will communicate with a state incarcerated prisoner and then wind up with conjugal rights and ultimately marrying that person. I'm not saying that they're bad people. Not everybody that goes to prison is a bad person. Not every crime is violent. That needs to be understood. The violent criminals, they're likely to be bad people, and you may want to think twice about getting involved with something like that, because I'm not so sure that if you have violent tendencies that got you into prison, that those violent tendencies are likely to go away while you're in prison. If anything, they'll probably exacerbate and get worse. But there are plenty of people in prison that are there for nonviolent things that, I'm not saying what they did was right, because if what they did was right, they wouldn't be in prison. But I guess what I'm saying is they're nonviolent people. They're no threat to your physical welfare. They're no threat to anybody, anything like that. So,
well, it is a well-known fact, and that serial killers have a huge bunch of people. They're followers, the women, they get married. Serial killers who have killed 50 people and enjoyed every moment of it. They still get married and they have friends.
I know, and there's actually a psychological evaluation that fits most of those people. It's called antisocial personality disorder. And statistics are out. I don't know them exactly, but I can approximate them, which is about 7% of the population is antisocial personality disorder affected, but 90% of the prison population is antisocial personality disorder affected. And if you have antisocial personality disorder, it's not likely that you can be cured. It's not a mental illness that's subject to treatment. It's a mental diagnosis that indicates that you have these tendencies. The biggest tendency, of course, is to put yourself in front of everybody else and everything else. So if, for example, Reed, I wanted your can of cat food over there, I just take it.
This is reserved for seniors. That's what they're going to be eating shortly.
And if I were antisocial personality, if I wanted that, it didn't matter that you wanted it for food. I'd take it off the table. But if you had it in your hand, if I wanted it, I'd take it from your hand. And if you didn't give it to me, I would do as much harm as necessary to get it from you, including killing you.
Well, here, let me open this up for you.
No, we may need that later.
Well, you're a senior. You qualify.
I am.
You can
I
eat
do.
it. You know.
I've never had cat food.
Well, actually, the tuna cat food isn't that bad.
Isn't it?
You know, you have a lot of mayonnaise, and it's you make a sandwich out of it. And a number of my friends said, we're not going to ever come over and eat hors d'oeuvres at your house again. Okay. Now, we've kind of rambled around, talked about a lot of things here, which do affect seniors, many of them, and their grandchildren and granddaughters. Incidentally, I did want to point out that the statute, the law in New York State is a woman is not smart enough to say yes to sex until she's 17.
That's
in
correct.
some states it's 18, meaning she's not smart enough until she's in college to say yes. The rest of the world, including Canada, it's about 14, which seems to make kind of sense. But with the current law in New York and other states, you made a felon out of about half the boys in high school.
I know. Well, you know, you want to talk about strange twists.
That is strange to me.
If I were to have or give a cigarette to a 17-year-old girl right now, I don't smoke, by the way. I smoke a cigar now and then, but I used to smoke cigarettes.
Not
I guess that's
smoking.
off
If you
topic.
don't inhale, it's not
That's
considered.
right. I used to smoke cigarettes. That's off topic. But nonetheless, if I were to give a cigarette to a 17-year-old girl right now, I violated the law. If I were to give a can of beer or a bottle of beer or a glass of beer to a 20-year-old girl right now, I could get arrested. If I have
About
sex,
an aspirin.
yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, that's the craziness. If you've got a, if you've got a prescription that says I got a horrible headache, oh, take one of my pills. You've broken the law. You could go to
that's
jail.
a Class B felony.
Yeah, you're dealing in drugs now.
Yeah, but if I have a 17-year-old girl that I decide voluntarily, obviously, and with consensually, to have sex with, that's okay. I can't give her a cigarette when we're done, and I can't give her a beer before we start, or I can give her a beer before we start, and she can have a cigarette when we're done, but and I'd get arrested for both of those, but the sexual act itself, that's okay. Well, I'm not exactly sure that I understand the connection there, and I'm not exactly sure that the legislature has their priorities right. So
I don't know what they're trying to do. They're crazy as hell.
Yeah.
Well, for instance, that 17-year-old girl could get married at 16, but you can't have anything to do with her until she's 17, theoretically, and otherwise you go to the pokey. We're just wrapping on now. As I said, let's get back to senior stuff now. That is senior stuff, incidentally.
I apologize for that, but we kind of got off topic.
No, that's very important.
Every time we have the show, we always talk about something different. So
it's something that everybody's rapping about instead of sort of esoteric things that have nothing to do with
just starting with the Casey Anthony thing, that is, every time, in fact, we went out to dinner with a couple we hadn't seen for a long time last night, and the first thing she said, what do you think of the Casey Anthony verdict? And I said, well, same thing I told the audience here, which is wrong result, but right verdict.
Well, the point being, and I think you made this point, I'll re-emphasize it, you are not guilty until the state has proven you guilty, and then even though they got a rotter, they know did it, over and over they've got proof of it. If they don't prove it, he will probably go innocent.
And should
be innocent.
And should be. No, not guilty, but should be, and that's the way it's got to be, because you just can't have the weight of public opinion decide who's guilty and who's not, because media can twist it any way. That's right, that shrill harpy. Media can twist it any way they want, and all of a sudden the weight of public opinion is that a person is guilty, when in fact there may be no evidence that person has any guilt whatsoever. I'm first-hand knowledge of what newspapers can do to people when they want to lie. There's not anything the person who's being lied about can do anything about it. So it's just unfortunate that the media can control and twist public opinion as much as they do, but it's fortunate that in the criminal justice system, we have that system where it doesn't matter what the newspapers say, it doesn't matter what TV or radio commentators say. What matters is the quality of proof applied to the case of or the law of the case, and then deciding whether or not that evidence was sufficient to render a verdict of guilty. And if it's not, the verdict is always correct. Do innocent people get off? Innocent people do get off. Do innocent people get convicted? On occasion they do. Do guilty people get off? Probably far more often than people recognize that to be. But the point is, that's the system. That's why we're such a great country, is because we have a system like that, where public opinion doesn't decide who gets punished for what and why. We have a system that's rooted in centuries, probably close to 1,000 years now of common law, where we have to do it a certain way. Whether you like it or not, that way has always been in existence, and we can't change it because electronic media and newspapers have decided something differently.
Yeah, well, as someone did point out, the court decision, is based on who has the best lawyer. And of course, today the rich and powerful can afford, like O.J. Simpson, people like that, can afford a massive amount of legal power, and they often get off. When you and I, if we went before the judge, we'd be in the pokey forever.
Well, I can't figure out in that Anthony trial is she's apparently destitute.
Yeah, how did she get all this lawyer power?
Lawyer power and then expert witness power. I mean, that trial had to cost for her in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Sure.
I don't understand how that happened.
Yeah, I had the same inclination as to question, where did this come from?
You're entitled to a defense, and the law requires, this is nationwide too, it started with Gideon versus Wainwright, which is 40 years old, more than 40 years old now, that indigent are entitled to counsel just like people who can afford them. And I understand that concept, but my God, I mean, talk about the money that must have been spent on that trial. It's
I have a sneaking suspicion that the attorneys, number one, wanted the notoriety. They're on TV every day,
Yeah, that they got.
which is wonderful publicity. But secondly, there's always going to be the movie.
That's true.
And that brings in big bananas.
And the interesting part about that is there's laws all over the country, one in New York State as well, that people who are guilty cannot profit from their misdeeds, which really means, for example, if they've been convicted of a crime and they write a book about it later, they can't profit off of that crime. The money goes to crime victims. I don't know that in this case, because think about it, she is guilty of some check fraud, and that's unrelated.
But she's not going to have a movie about check fraud,
yeah,
so she's off on that one.
Yes, it's on the homicide. She's guilty of being untruthful to investigators, but she's not guilty of the homicide. I don't think, and I don't know this, by the way, if Florida has such a law, but even if Florida has such a law that says she cannot profit, I don't know that they can take the proceeds of the money she'll get from her book, which of course she won't write, but the book that'll be under her name, the movie rights that'll be granted, she'll make millions off of this, and I don't know, I'm not saying that they can't, but I don't know that the state of Florida can take the profits from that on the theory that she committed a crime and she has now profited from it, because the crime for which she was charged, she was found not guilty.
Well, I know who's going to help themselves to it. Her lawyers, they're going to get a lot.
I expect
her
so.
special witnesses, then the nanny that she accused, whose life was wrecked, she's suing the hell out of her. The detective that spent months working on this thing, he's suing the hell out of her. And also, I think the people in Neck Research who were looking for the body, and the people, the state will probably say, well, we spent, on police, we spent so much money.
Tons of money.
There won't be anything left for this poor young lady.
Well, I don't agree that she's a poor young lady. She's young. She's young. I'm sorry. She's young.
Yeah,
and actually, when you said poor young lady, the interesting part was, this is my old junior English teacher. She's a wonderful woman. She lives in Fredonia, Mrs. Lynch. She was on one of my grand juries one time, and I was indicting somebody for grand larceny, female defendant, and I kept on referring to her as the lady, and she afterwards came to me and said, young man, I guess I'm a little younger than she is, but young man, you have to earn the title of lady. It's not automatic. And whoa, now I've learned. So the female, the woman, but not the lady.
There you go. We've been having a nice chat with Jim Subjack. We're down to, we just got this message which came in. You've heard this before, Jim.
I have.
We're out of here.
Again.
Take 30 seconds to wind up whatever you want to say.
Well, actually, I always come on the show prepared to talk about senior issues, and I got off on a tangent today. And actually, the last time I
didn't
got
help
off on a
any.
tangent. But nonetheless, examine your wills. If you don't have one, think about having one, getting one. Think about what you want to put in it. It shouldn't be a hasty decision. It's something that should be well planned and well thought. You may want to think about health care proxies. You may want to think about living wills. You may want to think about powers of attorney, because at some point, well, we all
You're going to need them all.
You likely will at some point need them all. There are plenty of capable attorneys throughout the county.
What's your phone number?
My number is 672-2800. But there are plenty of capable attorneys throughout the county who are more than happy to provide that service for you. Take advantage of it. Call an attorney. Get those things done.
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Reed, it's a pleasure.
You will be hosting this show yourself on October 20th?
Well, actually, no, not till March.
You won't be. You'll be coming in March.
I'll be coming in March.
Okay, I want to thank the special people out there. Last caller, sorry we didn't get you. It's probably Linda, who knows, but we'll catch you next time. I want to thank special people, Chuck Kelsey, Devin Taylor, Chris Berg, Randy Burt, Chris Ramaker, Jeff Zook, Don Zenz, John Hamels, and once in a while, Dan Berg. May you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. Get out to the farmers markets today. Stop in at the arts and craft shows. Have a terrific time in Chautauqua County, and go out and take a dip in the lake. Who knows? There's lots of wonderful things to do. May all that is proud and true and noble abide with you. I'm Reed Powers.